Good evening, folks. Glad you joined us, and we have several folks that are with us right now on our Google Hangout about training and terrorism here for the KSRA. I'm Lyle Cadell. I'm the social media director for KSRA, and already online with us is Corinne Mosher and Jason Perry. Soon we'll have Mike Yoder and Daniel Shaw available with us. I think Brian's going to be busy tonight. He had some business come up, actually. He's a private detective, and I do believe we have Mr. Shaw coming on board. Jason, why don't you start us out? Actually, I'll go ladies first. Ladies first tonight. And Corinne, why don't you start us out? Just introduce yourself. Tell us where you work at and what you're doing and everything, and so people can kind of get to know you.
Okay, well, my name is Corinne Mosher. I'm a firearms instructor at Center Fire Shooting Sports in Olathe, Kansas. And then for the past 2 years or so, I have been shooting competitively. So I started with IDPA, which is International Defensive Pistol Association, which I felt was the closest to defensive style shooting as possible, even though it's still a game. And then I moved on immediately into 3-gun, so that's rifle, pistol, shotgun. So I do a bunch of that pretty much every weekend. I'm traveling somewhere around the country shooting competitively, and if I'm not during the week, I am instructing at my home range. So I've got I've been married to my husband 11 years now. Tomorrow, actually, we're on our anniversary.
Awesome.
So I'm actually at a hotel where we're going to have dinner later, but it's our anniversary, and and we've got a 9-year-old daughter, Tyler, who's a black belt in Taekwondo. And so, like I said, my husband's in law enforcement, so law enforcement is very near and dear to our heart, and so is training the public to be able to defend themselves, and then competitive shooting. So that's me too. So.
Well, happy anniversary. I didn't know. So good to have you, though. So good to have you, and she is, of course, part of our training committee. And then also, Jason, I'll let you go, and then Daniel, I'll catch you on the backside there. Just introduce yourself, Jason.
All right, I'm Jason Perry of Central State Training Group. It's my training company. I've been operating for 10 years now. A full-service firearms training outfit. We rifle, pistol, shotgun, all any kind of competition. Our home base is near Pretty Prairie, Kansas. It's just straight west of Wichita, about 35 miles. And we travel all over the world in firearms training. And then real job for the past 25 years.
You're breaking up there, Jason. Are you still with us?
I think I am.
Okay, you broke up there when you were talking about your Department of Corrections experience.
Okay, 25 years in this Department of Corrections. I do a couple of things for them. I'm a master firearms instructor, which means I teach the teachers that teach about 2,000 uniformed staff in the state of Kansas. And I'm also the special operations commander for the Max Security Facility in Hutchins. That's kind of me in a nutshell and where I come from.
Awesome. Thank you. And great to have you on board, too. Of course, Jason is a part of our training committee as well. So we just excited about that. As far as going forward, too. And now the guy who is the lead firearms instructor for the KSRA, he's also the chief firearms instructor for Thunderbird Firearms Academy in Wichita. Daniel, if you want to introduce yourself and just give us a little bio, and I think folks know you a little bit. So.
Yeah, hi Jason, Corinne, and Lyle, and everybody else out there watching. I'm Daniel Shaw. I'm the director of training at Thunderbird Firearms Academy. Background is really military, but I don't really teach a lot of the stuff that came from the military, and I'm not a big believer in the military institutional inertia. I think I've grown more and learned more in the past 4 years being out of the military than I did in 16 years in the Marine Corps. So I just take that experience and everything else and teach the students the best I can, and with the most current information that's unbiased, that's based on reality and not some, like the term I used earlier, institutional inertia, which I see a lot in the firearms community. And there are rights and wrongs, and I think we can be more right now than we've ever been, because I don't have to go by theory or stories. I can sit and watch gunfights all day long, actual recordings of them, and not go by somebody's embellished account of a shooting engagement like we had 2 years ago. Then, that's kind of what I do. Nothing special.
Awesome. And tell us what you just got back from doing here just a week and a half ago or so.
Oh, it was probably the coolest thing I've done in the civilian world. Marine Corps contacted me, and I went up to well, Thurmont, Maryland, Naval Support Base, Thurmont, Maryland. We're not allowed to say online what the place is actually called, but it's basically the presidential retreat, if that rings any bells. And I spent 4 days training over 70 Marines that are tasked with guarding the president out there in that environment. And it was pretty awesome to be out of the Marine Corps but still be called to go back and impact the Marines there now and in the future, because they're going to pass on that information and going to be back out there next year doing something else with it.
Awesome. I was hoping Mike would be able to get on with us here, but I'm not seeing anything from him quite yet, and hopefully he'll catch up. Mike Yoder was supposed to join us as well tonight. He is the SWAT commander for Sumner County Sheriff's Department and also teaches at I'm coming through somebody's mic, by the way. Just getting some reverb.
If you use headphones, it's generally a lot better on the Hangouts.
I've got my earbuds in, and I could hear myself. Anyhow, Mike does serve with, like I said, the Sumner County Sheriff's Department, and he is also, I think, does some adjunct work at, or he has taught, I know for sure, at the Law Enforcement Training Center for Kansas, and for many years, and so owns his own range, Trigger Guard range down in Wellington. So hopefully he'll be able to join us here in a little bit. But before time gets away from us, and I know everybody's got schedules, and Corinne's waiting to go out to dinner. So her and her husband will be married 11 years, is that right?
11 years, yeah.
11 years tomorrow?
Yep.
There you go. So, however, we wanted to talk about training and terrorism tonight, and to bring everybody together. And this is not, just to let everybody know, this is not in our entire training committee. We'll actually be doing some introductions on that here in the coming future, but and have a meeting coming up on August 16th in Wichita as a committee, and we look forward to that. But just have a few members tonight that we're able to get together and talk about this, because it's right where we're at today. And with what's recently happened over in Nice, France, what's happened practically every day, and we just had a priest who was brutally murdered over in France as well here within the last 48 hours. So, and the things that are happening within our country, we've had. The one question I wanted to just pose to you guys, and somebody can start out. I think we need to define what is terrorism. When people say terrorism, is it just a matter of a jihadist coming and trying to shoot the place up? Sorry, my dog just took off with my microphone here. Or is it a matter of, a bomb, or I mean, what are we talking about when we're talking about terrorism? So who wants to try to take that on?
Well, it's kind of impossible to answer. It depends on what agency you ask. DHS has their definition of terrorism. DOD has their definition of terrorism. Everybody has their own definition of terrorism. Every agency within the U.S. government has a slightly different definition. Really, the one thing that they have in common is someone is doing violence for ideological, socio-political, or some kind of that. They're trying to get a body count, trying to cause as much damage as possible to get media attention to further whatever cause they have, whatever that may be. That's pretty much the only thing they all have in common, but the wording changes a little bit from definition to definition.
I agree. I agree with Daniel. I think also, the targets, military and non-military, I think a lot of the times when we think terrorism, it's to inspire, literally, terror in everybody, not just in people who are working and living in a military base, but everyday citizens, who are going about their everyday lives. I could be attacked at the mall. I could be at McDonald's. I could be in church. That kind of fear, to strike fear, in like Daniel said, in support of some kind of radical ideal, and usually driven by hate of So yeah, I mean that's one of the things. You could be anybody, and specifically civilians. And like we've seen in these attacks, they're not necessarily targeting the people who can defend themselves. They're targeting, people who are having a good time at a club. They are out with their families at a mall. The people who are the most vulnerable are the ones that they're typically going after when we think about, what is terrorism and what is just a crazy person who's, unleashing their hatred on the world, which is also a form of terror.
Yeah, probably terrorism is happening. It doesn't really matter what the definition is, or what the government agency says is terrorism. If it's happening in your face, it's meaningful to you.
Agreed. I think it's a lot of times it's stereotyped, and we just think about, oh, that's over there. That's over there in the Middle East, or that's over there in France, or that's in Germany, where, just these brutal attacks, incredibly brutal attacks. But, and in fact, just like you've all described, it's a wide variety of things, and of course there's domestic terrorism, as we've termed it, that has taken place. But, I wanted to define what we were talking about, first of all. Second thing I wanted to look at tonight was, how do we, I know you guys are, full-time instructors, and you deal with it, some of you from a law enforcement perspective and some not, but how do you deal with someone who literally, let's just take, for instance, the suicidal maniac, whether they're going to die death by cop or, whatever it may be, or going to blow themselves up, and they don't have anything to lose. How do you mentally and emotionally, how are we to prepare ourselves to deal with that individual, and then from there we're going to go into some other areas as well?
Well, first, one of the problems that I see in the firearms community and the self-defense community, going from martial arts to edged weapon to firearm use and self-defense, we have to change the way we think about this type of violence. A lot of folks are taking the defensive mindset over to the active shooter, or the guy that potentially is an active shooter, and then when all else fails and he can't do that anymore, then he blows himself up. So, and we're not immune anymore to this international type of violence. It's here. It's been here. It's going to continue to come. If we look at when Russia pulled out of Afghanistan, how the attacks began there right after that happened, and as we draw down and pull back, they can allocate more resources to our area, and they've already allocated that to Europe. So we're seeing more and more attacks there, and I believe we'll see more here. But we have to look at this type of violence differently. This isn't the 3 feet away, 3 yards away profit crime. I know plenty of trainers out there that tell their students that they don't need to be accurate when they're shooting, because self-defense usually doesn't require a very high level of accuracy. Well, if we're thinking about active shooter defense or active killer defense, our only shot may be a limited exposure target at 25 yards, and that's our only opportunity before foregrounds and backgrounds are no longer clear. We need to be able to shoot at a high level. We also need to be able to turn on violence at a different level than we've never really taught people to before. There are situations where we don't give commands, we don't ask please, we don't say drop your gun, we don't give an option. But it's not prudent to give the option or give a command or identify yourself as someone who's trying to stop them, when we know that 84% of active killers are stopped by force. Why am I going to give them an opportunity to hurt me by giving a command? We have to lose the way a lot of people think about this problem of an active shooter or a bomber or any of those things, and realize that we're not a judge, jury, and executioner, but there's really only one answer to that problem, and it is equal or greater force. And there's really nothing in between. And it's not that 2 yards away profit crime, all I got to do is discourage him with some pain and he'll stop fighting. That's not who we're dealing with.
Agreed.
I agree. That's what we have is, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the question is, how do you deal with someone who has nothing to lose, who has had years and years of hatred building up? We're already going to be outplanned because they're choosing the time, location. Hopefully we're not going to be outgunned, but quite frankly, with what we're seeing nowadays, they're typically armed with some type of long rifle, with explosives, with multiple magazines, and basically unlimited time and ammo because they planned it. So we had better not be outskilled. Okay, so that's what Daniel's talking about, the a mindset, how we think about these individuals, and that's hard because we don't spend years and years developing, hatred, thinking of people as subhuman. We respect life, and so we need to, yes, approach our training respecting life, but like Daniel said, we need to be able to develop that switch that we just flip it and we're vicious and we're violent. It's that trained violence that we switch on and off. We need to mindset number one, and I think unfortunately, because those examples are in front of us, like Daniel said, we can watch gunfights pretty much every day. We can watch people being attacked. This is what happened over in this state. This is what happened in France. This is what happened in Germany. This is what it looks like. Although that's unfortunate, but from a training aspect, now I can sit and put these videos in front of my students and say, hey, maybe you've never been a victim of violence, but this is what it looks like. Do you see how this person is, uncontrollable? The only thing that's going to put them down is let's not be outskilled, and let's train to be violent, and it's something we never want to have to do, but that's what we have to do.
Jason, I know you probably dealt on the corrections end with violent people for years and years and years who come into the system. How do you deal with training your officers to equalize? And I mean, this is on an LE level. I realize that, but I mean, to train an officer that has to meet a very violent individual that has come into now a cage, essentially. I mean, how can you give us a little bit anyhow on that?
Yeah, I have kind of a unique perspective on that. For the last quarter of a century, once a week I get to be in the same room, same building, somebody trying to kill somebody else, and get to see it firsthand and see how violent they are and just their mindset and total disregard for human life. And those guys aren't even the pros at it. This terrorist element that we're talking about now is even another level. We can't negotiate with them. We can't bargain with them. They only respond to extreme violence. The prison system, I think, is like the farm team of that. They're just a little bit more human maybe than the traditional terrorists, but it's a whole different out there that we've never experienced before, and we have to be stepping our game up as far as mindset. Everybody else has said our skill set needs to be worked on.
Yeah, if I could add to this,
yeah,
it's a good conversation. What I'm talking about changing the way we think is, and I like what Corinne said. We're going to be outplanned. We're going to be caught by surprise and all that stuff. Don't be outskilled. I mean, because we can sweat now, so we don't bleed later. If you don't mind that old cliche, but it's true. The paradigm shift in thinking that I'm talking about is, if we have, in my active killer defense class that we teach a lot of school teachers, I pose an ethical dilemma to them. I've got a school teacher, and she has 15 kindergartner, first grade students in that class. Guy comes in, murdering people, gets to that classroom, just shot a couple of kids in her classroom. She takes him down, takes the gun, beats him about the face with it, sticks thumbs in his eyes, rips his ears off, whatever, but she's incapacitated this guy at some level, and he's still conscious or subconscious. She doesn't have the strength to hold him down. She doesn't have 12 football players. She has 12 kindergartners in there. So she has resources. She has limited resources. She's got a gun in one hand, and she's got a tourniquet in the other hand that she just retrieved from her desk. Susie's over there squirting blood out of her femoral artery. Does the teacher use the tourniquet to tie up the bad guy, or does the teacher use the tourniquet to go save Susie's life? What other resources do we have there? We still have a gun. In the self-defense situation, we would look at that as if they no longer have the opportunity. I'm no longer in jeopardy. So, technically in that self-defense, if the problem was they were trying to take something that you had in that self-defense scenario, we've shot to stop. And we have stopped that act. Until they start an act again, they're no longer a threat. Well, when we know that 84% of these guys don't stop until they're dead, and we know that they're always armed with rifles, handguns, and knives, when you give the continuation of the circumstances and the totality of the circumstances, I believe that it is ethically correct for that woman to do what is the most morally and ethical thing to do, and that's save as many lives as possible. And that guy who came in killing kids, has surrendered his right to live to begin with. I have no authority to be a judge, jury, or an executioner or anything like that. I don't want that authority. But at the same time, I want my kid to get a tourniquet, and if that means the bad guy there has to get for sure incapacitated because there's no other resources to stop him from being or to keep him from moving, then you use whatever resources are available. And I get to train a lot of law enforcement in different parts of the country, and we're always having the same conversation. And there are agencies all over this country right now, not just SWAT teams, but individual officers who are believers in, I need to get this entire building clear so EMS can get in here, because the most likely cause of death in an active shooter is exsanguination, bleeding out. And the EMS emergency services can't get in, except for some principals or some agencies are working with some teams now and getting EMS in there a little bit faster. But they can't come in and start providing, you know, emergency medicine for these people who are bleeding to death, who are going to be dead in 4 minutes or less, until the building's clear. So if I stop and it takes me 2 minutes to handcuff somebody, I just had multiple people bleed out in the time it took me to handcuff that guy, when I could have had the building clear if I used other resources to clear that building faster. Now, this isn't just Daniel Shaw's idea. I'm just talking about a different brand of violence. It's not self-defense. A different brand of violence that is only stopped. At least 84% of them is through force, and they don't surrender. They don't run away. Very rarely do they do that. But we have to look at it, and I'll tell you that there's agencies all over this country who are a believer in not taking the time to handcuff, make sure they're down, and start saving lives.
Mike, you just joined us. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mike? We can't hear you.
We see you smiling, though.
Yes, he's... Can you? You might want to turn your mic on. Can you? Well, I'm not. We're not able to hear you. A thing you're saying there, but I'll wait, and if you can fix that mic there, I'll wait for you. The mic portion up at the top of the screen, you might have to turn it on. I'm not sure. But just to come back to this issue, I know Corinne and I talked about a little bit about the mother issue here the other day, and I know, you know, I'm not a mom, and I don't know how that feels. Corinne, can you just give us a picture in light of what Daniel just said about a mom, maybe and we're talking to single moms maybe out there, you know, that don't have a husband or a partner that can help them out or anything, and they're dealing with these very, very complex issues.
Well, I can tell you, whether you have a partner or not, the issue is going to be when you're out and about with your kids, it's usually just the mom or one of the parents. The other parent is at work or is doing something else. So the worst case scenario is being somewhere needing to defend your people, the people who are the most important to you, your children. And I can tell you, you know, I was very young when I had my daughter. I was about 21 years old, and you know, afterwards, after, you know, I got to know her, you know, where, you know, she's growing up, I realized if I knew how much it would hurt to think about her in harm's way, just the thought of it, just how much it would hurt, I would never have had kids, because that is the worst fear that a parent can have, and feeling like you are the only one who can defend them, especially in a situation where it's just me, I'm out with my daughter, or I'm, you know, wherever we're going to be in Denver. So, you know, we were talking, Lila and I were talking about, you know, we have the most to lose, and yet we are typically the least able to defend what is most precious to us, given our, you know, our size and our strength. And I'm not I'm a short person, but I'm not weak necessarily. And you know, I have taken Krav Maga. I work out in the gym. I make sure I'm physically fit. But because I've done that, I still know a fight with me and a man, just hand to hand, isn't going to go very well. It isn't going to last very long, which is what the firearm brings, is the equalizer. But we also are born with this what I think is this divine desire or violence within us to protect us. And with Lyle, we kind of called it mama bear, or the mama bear, kind of what we have in us. You know, that we've all heard the stories of women being able to lift cars off of babies, or being able to do incredible things to protect their children. So, you know, yes, we have this horrible fear. Yes, we know what we're afraid of because it's out there in front of us every single day. We're trained not to be violent in our everyday lives, and yet we do have this divine spark of it in us to use in the worst case scenario. So that, coupled with training, is unstoppable. So that's what we need to think about it. It's all doom and gloom. It's a horrible world we live in, but there is hope. Yeah. We are the hope. It's there, and there's nothing that we can't do with enough determination. So, you know, I guess take that, and you're not helpless. You know, there's always something that you can do. There's always nails and fists and chairs and all of that. So take it and learn how to use it.
Mike, can you hear us now? Mike, are you there?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, there. Hey, we can hear you, I think.
Yeah.
Can everybody else hear Mike?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Mike, would you just kind of take a break, and can you introduce yourself and where you come from and all that type of thing, and just give us a picture of where you're coming from?
Okay. First, I'm going to apologize. My internet connection is real bad here, so what I'm hearing from you guys is real choppy. Well, again, my name is Mike Yoder. I'm just recently retired from the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. I spent 37 years there, 20 of that on SWAT. I'm actually still part-time with the Sheriff's Office doing the firearms training and running the SWAT team. And I've been involved with the training and firearms for about 31 years. So, you know, my background is just that in law enforcement. Over the years, I've taught straight baton, side-handle baton, unarmed defensive tactics. I teach at the academy once or twice a year on the range, helping with the firearms and with building searches and use of force issues. So,
okay,
that's about it.
Great. It's great to have you. Good to have you here tonight. You know, and just to kind of revert back to what we were talking about, you know, and Corinne was talking about, and Mike and I talked about this the other day over the phone as well. How do you take, and when you're dealing with literally evil, you know, and we've all talked about that here tonight, we're dealing with evil people. How do you take a person that, you know, we don't inherently, quote, know evil, unquote, as Americans, and we don't. How do you take that as an instructor and translate and take that person from point A to point B? And we're bouncing back and forth pictures here. There we go. But take a person from point A to point B that you literally have to become violent, and get that in their mind. You have to become violent, or you're going to die. And how do we translate that and bring those people from A to B? Anybody?
I went first every time. It's Corinne's turn.
I went second time.
I'm trying to be polite.
It's Jason's turn.
All right, I can respond to that a little bit.
Well, I can interject a little bit there.
Okay, Jason, why don't you go first, and then we'll have Mike.
Okay. I think one of the biggest things is we have to give people permission to do that, to be violent. It's okay, and get them in that mindset. It's okay. We can do anything and everything that we have available to us. There's a degree of force that we can be okay, and we got to give people the permission to do that. And that's a different way of thinking than we've ever had in this country, especially. So. We got to make it okay to do that.
Okay, so permission. All right, Mike, what did you have to add?
Well, and quite honestly, it's you know, what we experience here, you know, is something that the people in this area or this country are not used to. They're, you know, we're all used to living in a civilized society and not having to deal with what we're facing today. and getting them, it's a lifestyle adjustment, for one way, is, getting them to understand that when it comes to defending themselves or protecting themselves or their families or whoever it might be, that they're going to have to change their way of thinking. They just can't, do what they think is the minimum and expect to survive it. They're going to have to be retrained or reprogrammed to go all out and do things that they normally wouldn't do or wouldn't even think of doing. And that's just something that you can't teach them in a 1 day or 2 day class. That's something that they're going to have to receive training on and continually practice and retrain on there.
Yeah.
What everybody has in common that comes out and trains, it spends their hard-earned money, their dollars, and then gives up a Saturday or a Saturday and a Sunday or a weeknight or whatever. I believe that they all have one thing in common. I don't get a lot of a-holes in class. I don't get a lot of big egos in class. I don't get. It's pretty rare. What I find that all the students have in common, and it's every day of the week and every weekend, for both days, usually full. A lot of folks meeting brand new people, and they all look different, but they're the same kind of people. And I believe they come out and they train not because they have hate or fear, but they come out and they train because of love, because they want to come out and they want to stay here on this planet to provide for the people that they care about. They want to continue to help the people that they care about. They want to be in their lives. They want to see them grow up, and they want to be able to protect them if something bad were to happen and they were around and able to protect them. So they want to be the best that they possibly can be, man or woman, child, doesn't matter. And they come out and they pay good, hard-earned money and give up their rare, scarce time. Not trying to be too redundant, and they do that. And I think selling training and selling, what the KSRA is and what the NRA is and everything else, we're not going to do that through fear. So I do my best. A class may have a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different techniques and concepts in it, but I'm a big believer in what-if scenarios. I love them. I love going down rabbit holes. I believe that instructor, whenever they tell you that what if squirrels carried machine guns, we wouldn't go squirrel hunting, or if they tell you that maybe we don't have time to talk about all those rabbit holes and everything, they don't have the depth to go that deep, because that's your opportunity to learn. Because I cannot cover every type of gunfight or every type of violence in an 8-hour class. But if I can inspire thinking in a student, if I can inspire a new way of thinking, a mindset shift, through some of those scenarios or what-if situations, then we've covered a lot more, because they can take that same concept and apply it to a variety of different situations. So I do my best to explain to them and make them understand. Like, I know why you're here. You might even know why you're here, but you're here because of love, not because of fear or hate. And our love and our reverence for human life needs to be present. But at the same time, if someone's trying to steal my keys and my wallet and my my phone at 2 a.m. at the gas pumps, and I'm by myself, if I feel like I can get away with that with just giving up my keys, my wallet, my cell phone, I'm going to do that. But if my kid's in the back seat, we're throwing down. Out of my love for my child, there is going to be a violence happen at that gas pump that this world has never seen before, because the guy's not getting in the car with my kid in the back seat. It's not going to happen. Right. So, and I believe Absolutely. You're right, Jason. We need to. The permission thing is part of it. We've been taught from an early age, be quiet, be polite, don't be rude to anybody, be rude. Be so rude you're putting bullets in their face if that's what the situation dictates that needs to have happen. And us good guys, we're always behind the power curve. We're always behind. We're reactionary. We've got to gain an advantage, and we've got to do that with the most violent act we possibly can. Yeah. When it's time to turn on violence, we take it to 11.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that?
Well, there's one thing that
I have just one or two things to add to that.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. One of the things that I found in teaching not only civilians but cops for as long as I have is the vast majority of them don't believe that this is ever going to happen to them. So they don't put the time and effort into the training that they really need to do. And because most of the cops that I've ever trained have never had to pull their gun or never had to use their gun, and it's hard to get them to understand that you've got to train for that one time that it's going to happen and be able to survive that incident. and the amount of training you got to put into that, and the mindset they have to be in, and just letting them know that, this could happen anytime, and it's going to happen when you least expect it. And it may only happen once, and you've got to train your entire life for that 1 or 2 times that it's ever going to happen. Most people aren't willing to go to that because they don't think it's ever going to happen to them. So they're not going to put forth the type of training that or the effort that, majority of the people, there are some that's going to, but the majority of the people that I found, they're happy with going to the range once in a while and thinking at some targets and thinking that that's going to prepare them. And, and I tell them when I teach these classes that, you guys have got, you don't understand the dedication and the training and what it's going to take to actually put forth so you're going to survive a shootout or a deadly force encounter or anything like that. Most people, it's going to happen to them.
Mike, you probably see the same thing that I see. I'm curious. The guys and girls who have been in a ditch, cut and shot and stabbed and got their asses kicked, right there in a fight, I see those guys are at a different level than everybody else. I mean, they put in some work and they train hard because they've had that thought cross their mind where this is it, I'm going to die. And I've had a few of them tell me I got lucky in my first fight because I wasn't ready. I wasn't near this good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The ones that's happened to have a whole different outlook on it because they know it can happen and they want to be prepared for when it's going to happen again.
Yep.
Corinne, you had something you were going to say?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, along the lines of what they're talking about, well, why are we doing this? Why do we go? Because we're talking about violence, we're talking about mindset, we're talking about doing the worst thing possible, the fastest. Why are we doing it? And I had this thought when Daniel was talking about we do it because of love. I'm trying to give students permission, that whole giving the permission to be violent. In the beginning of the class, I might ask people to just make a mental note real quick of the top 3 to 5, maybe you have more, but I want you to think about the top 5 people in the world that you love the most, that deserve to be protected at every minute, every second. And so they'll take a second, they'll think about it, and I don't ask them to tell me who it was, but they knew who it was. And then and I'll tell them, okay, now let me tell you what Time Magazine said, who the top 10 most important people of the world are. And then I'll tell them who those are. And they're like, well, they weren't on our list. And I'm like, well, let me tell you what these people all have in common. These top 10, Time Magazine most important people of the world, they all have full-time bodyguards. And it's like, aren't your people and your more important to you than these other people? And these people have bodyguards. And you're like, wouldn't you love to be able to provide a bodyguard to the people that you love the most at all times? And like, well, of course we would, but we can't do that. Well, did you put yourself on that list? No, nobody ever puts themselves on that list. The top 5 people that are most important that they would do anything for that deserve to have a full-time bodyguard. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, you are on somebody else's list, whether you know it or not. So, you train to be able to protect your family, your loved ones, those top couple people on that list, but you also train to protect yourself because you are an important person. Your life is worth it. And like it all goes back to the love thing.
And I'll just mention very quickly, didn't you write a piece, Daniel? I think I did. I put that in Chips and Ricochet on that very issue. Didn't you write that on your blog?
Yeah, but it was a little bit of satire. But yeah, I mean, I was saying that. But a lot of folks were saying, after what happened down in Orlando, that the lesbian, gay, and bisexual community were saying that we should have more love and everything, and people were down in that, and I was like, I think they're right. A good act of violence inspired by love to stop a violent act, it doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. So yeah. I think they're onto something.
One thing that I'm sorry. Did somebody say something there?
I think somebody was vibrating.
Okay. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was preparing for this too. As we look at our world that we live in, and we talked about a lot of different things already here tonight, and on how to prepare people and that type of thing, and how to be prepared. What do you guys think about the See Something, Say Something campaign? I mean, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, but is it the answer to all the problems? No, but I mean, why not? We could. I've been saying for many years, and I'm sure I'm the only one, that the everyday armed citizen and the aware, unarmed citizen are our country's first line against everything from tyranny to terrorism. And yes, if you see something, say something. I don't think, but the problem is, it's just like our run, hide, fight tagline that DHS and FEMA uses. And they treat the run, hide, fight as if run, and if running doesn't work, then hide, and if hiding doesn't work, then fight. And I argue that that's not a list of like in the sequence you go through those. We see that more as a menu. If it's more prudent to run, run. If it's more prudent to go gouge eyes out and go throw down and try to get a gun, then that's what you do. So I teach it as a menu, not as a sequence of events. Kind of the same thing as if you see something, say something. You've been running and hiding your entire life. Everybody here in this Google Hangout has. Not everybody in the whole world has been taught how to fight or given permission to fight. So we could say run, hide, fight all we want, but they only know how to do 2 of those things. They don't know how to do all 3 of them. We got to teach them how to fight. The see something, say something. We should be providing education in high school. I think we should be providing medical education, hemorrhage control, wound packing, tourniquet application in high school, and resume writing. And we should also and all those different things. And if you see something, say something. But they need to understand what something is, because nobody's teaching them about baselines and anomalies and threat detection and all those things. And people need to understand that before they can actually see something.
Okay, that segues me into what I was wanting to go into, and I wrote that down, was about profiling. And we have 2 law enforcement officers, and then all you guys have a background near it anyhow, because Corinne's husband is in law enforcement. When you guys, and I'm not an instructor like you guys are, so I'm on the the learning end right now. What do we look for? There's people out there tonight that are watching or are going to be watching this video later on, and what do they? I mean, they're in Walmart, and they've walked into Walmart and they're getting their groceries. And, going about their daily duties, and what is it that they may look for in that somebody, you had the active shooter situation, for instance, in Vegas that took place in Walmart. And the one gentleman actually drew his weapon on the one shooter and tried to go after him, and then the trailing wife came along and actually shot that poor man, and he died as a result of his injuries. But what do people look for in profiling, if you will, in today's world?
I have the least experience, but I do have something to say about that. The JDLR, that's what my husband calls it. JDLR just doesn't look right. We are born with this intuition that is designed to take us from information, what we receive, to I know I'm in trouble or I'm fine, immediately, all the stuff in between as to why we feel the way that we do. We're very programmed already to kind of scan our environment and pick up what looks good, what's fine, or ignore the things that look normal. But if something stands out to you, there's a reason. So just like we need to give permission to people to be violent, we need to give people permission to ask why something doesn't look right. Because typically today there's this, you politically correct. You don't want to profile. That's a P word. That's a bad word. You can't make judgments based on people. Judge the heck out of everyone if you feel that your life is in danger.
Absolutely.
So it's why. It's ask the question. Why does this not look right to me? Oh, well, because and I just went through this. I was in Washington D.C. Just a couple weeks ago, and we can't be armed. We can't even have pepper spray. We're going in and out of the Senate and state bill. We're going in and out. We can't have basically anything except for what we can improvise. And so we're already being really aware of everything. And there was this one incident where Heather Miller and I were, we had just got off the subway. We were going up the steps, and this was very cool because it happened to both of us at the exact same time. We picked up on what happened at the exact same time. We gave each other this look like, did that just happen? That wasn't right. Anyways, there was a gentleman walking past us holding the hand of a little boy. And intuition told us it wasn't right. We looked at each other and said, what's going on here? And then putting the pieces together, we're like, he was walking from a direction where there was no train, there was no bathroom, there was no anything. Where was he coming from? this is a tourist area. He didn't have a backpack. He didn't have anything else. So, you know, these little pieces come together later, but the initial, that doesn't look right. Why doesn't it look right? That's okay to feel that and then to question that. And of course, you know, we said something we saw something, said something, but you know, it's okay to be like, you know what, this may be nothing, but I'm going to investigate further.
Yeah, I think that was very well put. We have a lot of folks wanting a laundry list, I think, of here's the top 10 things to look for, and we just put the puzzle pieces together, and that's just not really how it works. There's some generalizations. Maybe you can create a list or whatever, but it just doesn't look right. Because we're really good at people and things that just don't look right. And if we would just follow that intuition, follow up on that, we'd be much better off.
So there's
I also
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
I also think it's one of those that people that just doesn't look right. I like that. I don't think there's any. You can't. There may be something that you can put a label on as far as what to watch for, but you know, different people are going to act differently. The biggest thing we got to get people doing is paying attention to what's going on around them. When they're going shopping or they're going out to eat and things like that, most of them are just so focused on what they're doing and not paying attention to their surroundings. That's the biggest thing, because if they pay attention to the surroundings, they're going to pick up on things that just don't look right. I mean, just simple things like the other day, my wife and I went to the Town East Mall, and as we were coming out, there was a gentleman going in, and this was a 100-degree day. He was wearing a long-sleeve coat that went down past his, you know, to his knees. So, you know, we both looked at each other because she's a detective here at the sheriff's office. And, you know, so we turned around and followed him through the store a little ways just to make sure, because he looked like something he was going to do something. Luckily he didn't, but, you know, that's just it, getting people to pay attention to what's going on around them.
Yeah, and taking that, you know, a little bit further, I'm in the middle of a book. The whole book's really familiar to me because I did 3 weeks of the Marine Corps Combat Hunter program, which changed the way I look at the world many years ago. Saved a lot of the lives in Iraq and Afghanistan. An amazing program. But one of the things it talks about is the 6 domains of combat profiling, and very useful to any law enforcement officer who's ever taken it. Just it's every day. It's putting a name and putting an idea and putting basically the presence of something that shouldn't be, or the absence of something that should. It's explaining those baselines in society, and does it in a way that allows people, when they become more of a trained observer, that they can recognize the anomaly. And the anomaly is that out of place thing that we're seeing, that little gut feeling, that little weird thing, like that doesn't belong, like that's not right, or this place is missing this right now. There's something strange going on, you know. And I recommend everybody to read. It's called Left of Bang by Patrick Van Horn and Jason Riley. Really awesome book. It talks about proxemics, the study of interpersonal communication and relationships, relationship with the environment, and geographics, kinesics, like body language, which I love body language. And whenever I read up and study more body language, my wife always gets mad at me because she's like, "You're doing that body language thing, aren't you? You're playing games right now." And you know, biometric cues. The cool thing about, you know, with some of this stuff is, I don't care what language you speak, what country you're from, it passes all social boundaries. There are certain biometric things that we do as humans that we just can't get around, no matter, and it's not we grew up that way. There's certain things like showing our fangs, you know, and a lot of things like that that really set us up, that we can get some good information from that. And you know, atmosphere, it's just like the attitude of the environment that we're in. But it's all really interesting stuff to learn more about, and it's really changed the way I look at the entire world. The book has refreshed a lot of the stuff from the class for me, and it's a quick read, kind of boring at sometimes, but if you take it in, it probably changed the way you look at this world, you know, because I mean, most people can't go to a combat hunter class of the Marine Corps, but the book is huge. Left of Bang, if you get a chance to check that out.
Can you get that link to me later on?
Yeah,
I can add it to the video description. That way, folks can actually get a hold of it. Probably on Amazon, I assume.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's on Amazon. Yeah, okay. It is.
All right, good deal. Any other things to add about the profiling aspect, guys?
Hey,
One of the,
we got a profile, man.
yeah.
If we act like that's a dirty thing or a bad thing, like the racial profile and everything else, I don't even really agree with the term criminal profiling because it's tough to do that. When you guys, everybody in this chat and girl, when you guys go out somewhere, when you go to dinner, you're probably going to be carrying a gun tonight, Corinne, and you're going to probably be looking around like a bad guy would be if they're about to do something bad. There's a lot of things that we do that the good guys look a lot like the bad guys because we're being more aware of our surroundings, just like that bad guy would be more aware of his surroundings about to do something bad. So sometimes we can give that impression that we're kind of doing the same things that they are. And the idea here is don't stop doing that, but be ready for that and be able to recognize those things. And it's not a criminal profile. I really like the term violence profile, combat profiling. I'm looking for a problem.
Mike, how do you guys look at that from an LE perspective? I mean, what do you think there?
As far as the profiling issue?
Yeah, what do you Daniel just described?
Quite honestly, that profiling thing, it has gotten a bad rap because the way it was abused or misused by some law enforcement did give it a bad thing. But you're absolutely right, and it's more behavioral profiling, just watching what the body language of people, just like that has been talked about before. All you're doing is just profiling people's actions or things that they're doing, and just paying attention to what's going on, just to be aware of what's around you, and that's so important. And some people, it's funny because in some of the classes I just taught a concealed carry class last Sunday, and I had a couple of folks in there that just had absolutely no clue. When I started talking to them about, as they're in the public's eye or out in the public and watching what's going on around them and paying attention and the responsibilities that of carrying a gun and having to maybe use it, the extreme responsibility and the judgment you're going to have to use, they were just, none of it registered. And it's just, they watched too much TV, and they saw folks on TV, well, everybody's carrying a gun, and, you shoot somebody, and then, 30 minutes later you go out to eat, and everything's okay. And, I tried to get these things across to them about, what really happens or what could happen. And, also, not only that, but just like we were talking about a second ago, if you're paying attention to what's going on around you and kind of profiling people and getting an idea of their behaviors, a lot of that stuff can be avoided, and sometimes you may want to avoid it, sometimes you can't, because if you do, you're going to put other people at risk. So that profiling thing, I don't think it's such a bad thing, if it's used in the right way.
I liked what you said. You said behavioral profiling.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing. How are you acting? What are you wearing? Based on
Absolutely.
your environment and everything else. Do you belong? Is what you're doing, does it belong here?
Right. One of the things that I often wonder about is I see, we get all this video from these terrorist events, including the one that just happened here in Germany, in Munich. And here was a dude standing across the street videoing this guy shooting people.
Yeah.
And I seriously, I'm just kind of sitting there scratching my head and going, what in the world? And then even in Dallas, here was a guy standing out on his balcony videotaping a cop being murdered in front of his very eyes and kept doing it. And it just, I don't know, it viscerally brought something up in me, and I get a little worked up about it, I guess. But I'm like, what the, what are you doing, I mean, you're sitting here watching somebody getting murdered and trying to get on a camera. How to kind of address the social media aspect of terrorism and this idea as well, like that, from you guys' perspectives?
Well, that just seems crazy to me as well. You can't think of anything better to do than get a good video for YouTube when this is going on. Maybe I don't expect you to rush a guy with an AK-47, but at least save your own life and get out of the area. It's nothing that makes any sense, and it's that social media mindset that's the proper thing to get on video, and that's just as crazy to me as it is you, Lyle.
Yeah.
Well, I think social media is a blessing and a curse. You have, you know what, if you can't do anything, being a good witness is something. Now, that's not what I see most of these videos are. Most of these videos, Lyle, I'm with you, I'm just sick. Like, I'm sick. Like, you're filming a cop being beaten up. Why aren't you across the street helping? You know, why are you standing there? I'd like to prosecute you, you know, if I could. You know, but then on the other hand, I mean, it's being used as terror as well. You have these attackers that are live streaming their attacks, you know, and using social media. The guy, you know, in Orlando was oh, let's see how popular I'm getting on Facebook. Let's see if I'm on Facebook yet. While he's in there, while everybody's hiding in the bathrooms, you know. So there's something to be said about being a witness, but more often than not, what we're seeing is that people are choosing to take in action, choosing to, I don't know if they're trying to get their 15 minutes of fame versus to be a good witness. I don't know, but you know, I don't know if it's part of the freeze, the flight or freeze, that they're just freezing. But I think mostly what we're seeing is irresponsible. You know, that's not the appropriate reaction.
Anybody else on that issue?
Yeah, you know, it is a love and hate thing with social media, but at the same time, you know, I can't sit and watch a law enforcement officer getting hurt. I can't watch any innocent person getting hurt. It's just not in my DNA. But at the same time, you know, being a good witness is what we tell people to do whenever they can't help and intervene. But you know, who am I to say what a person should or shouldn't do? You know, for example, you know, if somebody's got their camera out and they're videotaping something, you know, they're not a journalist, so they don't try to stay that unbiased reporter kind of thing. They're just doing, I don't know what their motivations are. I have no idea, but they don't, no one has the duty, you know, they don't have the duty to go intervene. There's no law that says that they have to go help somebody. I believe that a good person of high moral character will go do that and help something, but I'm sadly, if you look at recent history and political events in the United States, I believe that we're men and women of high moral character are becoming more and more scarce. So it doesn't really surprise me when people aren't doing anything.
Yeah. I know we've taken up a little bit of time here. Do you guys have more time that we can answer some more questions?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Sure. One question I had, and I know it just comes up all the time for everybody, is gear. You know, and you've got every YouTube personality in the world. You know, they've got an ADC dump or whatever. You know, and they're showing what their gear is. But when you look at a terroristic situation, whether it's active shooter, whether it's a bomb or suicide bomber, and I'm not saying, you know, there's one gun that's, you know, the death ray for all, you know, but if you guys had to choose, would there be some suggestions that you would look to as far as concealed carriers, that they maybe need to think about carrying a double stack over a single stack, or would it just come down to, hey, it's your skill level, and if you got 8 rounds in a 1911, or you got 8 rounds in a M&P shield or a XDS or whatever the case might be, and an extra mag, it comes down to skill level, or does it come down to, hey, some of this depends on, and we're going to assume that you have reliable firearm, but what's the gear thing? I mean, where do you guys stand?
That's about a 20-hour conversation, and you're still getting of it. So I'll tell you what I tell people when they're like, well, you know, what's your EDC, or what should if you had to carry just one thing, or like if I had to carry just one thing to be the biggest impact on society, is a positive impact, I'd probably carry a little medical kit, you know, that's got some good things that stop bleeding and they can save lives, and a tourniquet. You know, I carry a gun as well, so, and I typically carry. Well, I went to the theater the other day and watched a movie, had a flashlight. It's going to be dark in there. Had a gun, of course, because it's a freaking theater, and you go in there like full battle rattle with plate carriers and helmets on nowadays. And I had a nice little medical kit with a tourniquet, with 2 tourniquets in it, actually, in my cargo pocket of my shorts. Some tactical ninjas would yell at me because I was wearing flip-flops, but hey, I'll be okay in the flip-flops. And if I don't get to fight in my super high-speed Merles or Solomons, I'm going to be okay, okay, if I didn't wear my range pants. So yeah, man, I think we get so wrapped up around this gun thing. Have a gun and know how to use it, and find the right gun for you. It's going to be different for every person. There's a bazillion guns
Right.
out there that are good,
Yeah.
that are made well, that are going to work just fine. Who cares? Whatever you got, learn how to use it, and carry a med kit, and know how to use it too.
That's exactly what I was going to say. One thing that I've taught for years is, people ask me about, do I need to put night sights? Do I need to put lasers on? Do I need to do this and that and buy all these little gadgets for the guns? And I said, it doesn't really matter. The biggest thing I can tell you is don't worry about all the gadgets to make you shoot better. Just whatever you shoot, learn how to use it well. Spend that money on ammo and practice. Just get a gun that you can shoot and you know how to handle, and just practice with it and get good at it. And that's the key thing right there.
You talked about discouraging night sights there. It's until they've got the other checks in the box. Man, I tell people on a daily basis, hey, what night sights do you use? You shoot good. Actually, to me, I think night sights are the most overrated product in the firearms industry.
I do too.
I think they're awesome for me waking up in the middle of the night. I'm like, all right, where's my gun on the top shelf? Okay, I could see those 3 dots. That's where my gun is.
Yep.
If the light conditions are so low that I can't see my sights and the geometry of the sights with the contrast of my background, and hopefully the contrast of my background is my target, and I can positively identify my target somehow, and I can positively identify the foreground and the background to be clear enough to align 3 little green dots. If I can't see that well, then I probably shouldn't be shooting, and unless I'm identifying my target with a muzzle flash. So when somebody's like, what sight should you get? I ask, my next question is, what kind of flashlight do you have?
Absolutely.
If you don't have a flashlight and you're not carrying it, that can't be dropped 20 times in a puddle of water built up on concrete, then you're not ready to buy night sights.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
That's Corinne, coming from a female perspective, I know you guys, you're different than us. We'll just put it that way. What for a female? What do you walk into Walmart with?
The first thing that comes to mind, everyday carry, is the flashlight. Just like Daniel was saying, the night sights, they help you see your sights, they don't help you see your target.
That's
and I know a fella that was in the World Trade Center the first time they tried to blow it up, walked down 100 flight of stairs in the pitch dark, and you'll never find him without a flashlight. The only place that it can be completely dark is inside. And how it's usually we're inside where you're with a bunch of people. The theater example, an absolute nightmare. So for me, flashlight goes with me everywhere I go. I need to be better. I need to have a bigger medical kit with me. I got it. That is extremely important. Like Dan said, most people are dying because they bleed out before help can get to them. That's horrible, because with the right preparation, that could be preventable. Extra ammunition if you can, but as far as what's an everyday carry gun, I think you should be more concerned with the kind of ammo that you put in the gun. I think a lot of people put way too much faith in their defensive ammo, that it's actually going to perform the way that they think it's going to perform. Working with Hornady ammunition, shooting, rounds into ballistics gel through materials, and even just, denim, where we compare it to other different defensive, even stuff that the police officers are carrying in their duty guns, and it doesn't always perform like it should, and that's really, really eye-opening. Whatever platform you have, be completely proficient with it. It doesn't matter. You should be able to pick up anybody's gun. Who says you're going to be fighting with your gun? Maybe you come across a police officer who's already down and you have to pick up his gun. Maybe you compromised too much in concealed carry method and you took the little tiny, not naming names, guns, like just tiny, tiny little gun, and you had your 7 shots and you're done. And, just because you shot doesn't mean you won. It means now you've had your turn. So, obviously, if we knew we were going to be in a fight, we wouldn't be there in the first place, but light ammunition, reliable gun, and we go back to, we're going to be outplanned, we're going to be outgunned, we better not be outskilled, so train.
Very good. Very well said. Jason, do you have anything to add on that?
Just we gave us the sun. What class?
You're breaking up real bad there, buddy.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
What's that, Stephen Hawking?
Jason, we can't hear you, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll just a quick question for folks that are watching. I mean, I agree with everything, man, because that's what I do as well. But the question that's going to come up is, I can drop this thing in the water, you know, like you were talking about, Daniel. I mean, I can drop it out in the puddle and all that type of thing. Yeah. How many lumens? I mean, I don't know what to go get. I mean, how bright does it need to be?
So
when you go into a theater, I mean...
This is where we're all going to probably differ, because I believe if I could have a 2 million lumen light in my pocket, I'm going to carry a 2 million lumen light in my pocket. You know, maybe that gets a little bit too far, but you know, I am not one of those guys that worries about, well, if I shine my light on this wall, I'm going to get this splashback and my night vision's gone. You turn on that white light, your night vision's gone if you've got a decently lumen gun. Get as many lumens as you can, and the technique you should use for shooting bad guy in dark is put light on the bad guy, pull trigger till the bad guy can't be bad anymore, and then turn light off the bad guy. You know, like or find more bad guys or more problems to solve. You know, like that's simple. And I'm a believer in, as my buddy William Petty would say, all the lumens, every one of them. I would turn on the light switch in the building if I could. Why not do that with the handheld light?
Okay.
Well, if I might, one of the things that I've noticed too, and I can tell you during our SWAT training, when we train on doing entries and we do role players and things like that as well, one of the biggest distractions that we have is we've got 2 bunkers or 2 shields that our first 2 guys in carry, and they've got, I don't know how many lumen the lights are, but just the lights alone and the lights on the rifles and the handguns is enough of a distraction that it actually works very well to our advantage when we come into a room, especially if it's a dark room. You light that up, because what you got to remember is the bad guy's been in this dark room, and you're screwing his night vision up too. But even in the daylight, just the lights shined on someone is enough of a distraction that it gives us an advantage of just a couple of seconds to do what we have to do. So I'm absolutely agree with that.
Just to drop a line here, is Daniel, is Cowan doing a low light for you guys, or just a handgun course?
No, he's doing an active shooter class that's scenario based and sims.
So this would be right along what we're talking about. You guys can plug away. If you got a course coming up.
Unfortunately, I think that class is full. It may have 1 seat left, but he'll be here the first week of August, or the first weekend of August. I believe it's 6th and 7th. There may be 1 seat left, but it'll be a good class. I've heard a lot of good things about his force-on-force active killer class, and it'll be a good 2 days of a lot of shooting, sims, and I think it's $500.
That's with Aaron Cowan from Sage Dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out of Georgia. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else got a class coming up that you want to plug for this?
Nope. Not right now.
Okay.
You can check our calendar, thunderbirdguns.com. We usually have something every weekend. Most of the time during the weekdays too. Just whatever's up there. There's a lot of stuff on there. I recommend everybody starting out, even if you want to be a high-speed like rifle ninja, you're much more likely to have to use a handgun. That should be one of our first checks in the boxes, is a good solid handgun class. Check in one of those somewhere.
I have 2 more questions that I have for the night, but the first of which is this. This is a delicate issue, but and all of you have kids, and we are not blessed right now. We have one in heaven, but my wife and I do. But how do you explain to children that mommy and daddy carry a gun or carry, whatever it may be, a non-lethal or whatever, and we train to do these things? Say, for instance, a person goes off to a class this weekend or next weekend, and they come back and maybe a 5-6-year-old or 7-8-year-old or beyond. How do you explain that to a child that, you know what, mommy and daddy went to train and to kill somebody, and they see on TV all this stuff, and you know, not as far as news goes, but they see on TV all the, you know, crazy stuff. They play the games and everything. How do you explain that to them kids and get their mindset that mom and dad love you and all that type of thing? I mean, just kind of.
I've never had to answer that question before because I've got a 14-year-old and I've got a 6-year-old, and my 14-year-old shot like every machine gun in the Marine Corps and done all kind of stuff on like family days and stuff. And if I were home in North Carolina where my family is, and his cousins were like, "Hey, let's go to the range. Could your dad take us to the range?" He's like, "Really? Do we have to go do something with guns? I really hate it." Like he just doesn't care. It's just he ignores it. My 6-year-old, you know, a better question would be, you know, Lyle, you know, or anybody here who has kids, Corinne, do your kids ask you why you wear a belt? You know, do they ask you why you wear shoes? You know, like this is a part of my everyday life. This is a part of my wardrobe. Like my kid's seeing me put a gun on for his entire life. He thinks I shoot boxes for a living because we're always shooting cardboard targets, and it's that's what he says. And it's a part of our life, and it's such a part of our life that it's never even like he doesn't even care about it. My 6-year-old doesn't even care about it. Like it's completely ignored constantly. He doesn't touch it. We'll tell him don't touch it. You know, if he's picking him up or anything, and he just does it. Like he doesn't care. Anybody else have similar experiences?
Well, in my experience, it sounds a lot like yours. I mean, my daughter grew up with, you know, daddy going to work, a police officer, me being a concealed carry holder and teacher, and so the question as to why we do it hasn't come up, but the or you know, as in, I guess why would be because there's bad people. But one of the things that we've tried to make her aware of is, you know, the same stuff that every parent does. Hey, there's bad people in the world, this and that, but instead of using all the euphemisms that I grew up with, well, you don't talk to strangers because they might hurt you, that kind of stuff, where, you know, she sees that I get sad when, you know, anytime there's a terrorist attack, and she'll ask, hey, what's going on? And there's like, well, you know, I'm sad because there are people in the world that are hurting other people, and you know, I don't want to make you sad, but I want you to know that there's these people out there, and that's the reason why I train to protect you. I want to train you to protect yourself. A firearm is one of the ways that we do that. But what's more important is that you're aware of your surroundings, and then we go into that, you know, watch out where you're going, look both ways when you cross the street. You know, if you see something, you know, let me know about it, and then we go into the passwords, the communication that you don't have time to have if it's time to have it. You know, this is an emergency. You need to do this without question. You know, it's the dry runs, it's the practice runs, just like you know, Mike has with the SWAT officers. How many dry runs of entering a building do you have? A million. So that when it comes time to do it, it's smooth and nobody has to ask questions and everybody knows their role. My daughter knows her role. If I give her the certain code that it's time to do something, she knows what she's expected to do. Then I have it with me and my husband when we're out together. We know what roles we're to play, who's going to do what and when, and that one key word. And so it's about safety, but it's about being prepared, and that way you don't have to, you know, I don't want you to be scared. I just want you to be prepared, and these are the ways that we're going to do it, just like you would drill for a fire drill. And in Kansas, like we would drill for a tornado drill. Is it going to happen? I don't want it to, but I'm not going to want to wish that I had prepared for it when it's happening.
Good.
Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Can you guys hear me now?
Go ahead, Jason.
Are you hearing me now?
I can
Yes.
hear you, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to just add on that I have a similar experience. My kids have just grown up with it, and those questions.
Oh, we just lost him, I guess, potentially. I'll just end with this thought and ask this thought, I guess. And this is more of a practical aspect. As people leave tonight, and they leave this discussion, they've watched it or they watch it later on, and they maybe went to some classes and this, that, and the other thing, or they're going to go to the range this next weekend. what's the... Oh, there went Jason. Uh, what is the one drill from each one of you guys, if I could? What's the one drill you'd say if you're going to go to the range this weekend and you're going to prepare for an active shooter or a terroristic threat, and then you're going to plan with a gun? You know, this is what we're going to do. What's the one drill that they could take and do with maybe 100 rounds of ammo, and an easy drill they could take with them for this next weekend to the range?
I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things, and I'll tell you, it's a drill that I actually have our officers do as well. Because one of the, one of the big things that officers encounter, obviously, is during car stops. That a lot of officers are killed during car stops. So a drill that I have them do is I'll set up a silhouette-sized steel target at about 10 yards or closer, between 7 and 10 yards, and put them on a timer, and they have to be able to draw, fire 2 rounds. I have them do 2 rounds and 3 rounds, but they got to be able to draw and fire 2 rounds in at least 2 seconds or a second and a half. And that's one thing that I have when I do a basic pistol class, is one of the drills that I like to see them do is wherever their holster's at. And I stress that obviously carry your gun in the same place all the time, so you're used to it, you know where it's at. Being able to get that gun out of the holster smoothly and put 2 or 3 rounds on target as quickly and smoothly as you can, because the person that's going to win a gunfight is the one that gets the first accurate rounds off, and have them be able to hit those targets 2, 3, 4 times as quickly as they can.
Okay, that's good. Next.
Yeah, I see a lot of folks who don't shoot guns good, and some of them think they do, and they don't know. I think that, myself included, what they should put the most effort into, and most people out there, they're hitting the still target at that distance takes a level of accuracy. Doing it fast out of the holster, takes a level of being fast and accurate at the same time. If you're not quite ready for that drill, if you don't have that accuracy down, go out and don't worry about shooting the whole big silhouette. Go be at 3 yards or 7 yards and make all your rounds touch each other. Use the trigger press that it takes to shoot perfectly. Not just good enough. Well, if it was self-defense, I'd have got him. I shoot a 45 so I can miss a little bit. Make those go for perfection. Whatever drill you're doing, go for 100% perfection when they're in training. We shoot a lot of steel targets when we're on the outdoor range, and the funny thing about the steel is, like, if I've got my target here and there's one barely hanging on down there at the bottom, well, that still made a noise. I went bang and then it went ding, so I got a hit, right? And that's how the students are all the time. Like, cool, I'm good. I'm like, wait a second, you barely nicked that target at the bottom corner. Let's put them in the high center chest, right here in the center where that button would be, and go for a high level of perfection. That way we understand what our abilities are. If we need to take that 25-yard limited exposure shot, we know we're capable of it or we're not capable of it, and it's not safe for us because I don't know who said it, but the guy who said that there's a lawyer attached to every bullet, I'd like to punch him in the face. I believe that there's a life attached to every bullet, and there are times when we need to turn on a high level of precision, and we need to know what that means to us and how accurate we can get, so we know our capabilities. And go practice that perfect trigger press, that perfect sights. And whenever you're doing that, go draw that gun as fast as you can and slam that thing on the target and shoot that very rapid accuracy out of the holster.
Next, anybody?
Yeah, I'll go. We can't be too accurate, So I echo what Daniel and everybody else has said. You have to start with accuracy. One drill that I would recommend is, hang up a paper silhouette target, but then hang a T-shirt over it, an old T-shirt you don't care about, because the reality is that what you're going to be seeing over your front sight, which is hopefully you're seeing your front sight, isn't going to be a bullseye. It's not going to be a perfect steel, rounded 4-inch steel or whatever you're used to shooting on the range. It's going to be an actual human being, and you're not going to have a bullseye. You're going to have to literally decide where here on this center mass or whatever you're presented with, and I get it, where am I going to place my shots? Not there I'm going to place it because there's the bullseye. It's where am I going to place these shots? And what we find in training is that when you take away a bullseye, people really start to appreciate their sights and their front sight a lot more than they ever did before. And then once you have that accuracy, it's all fine and good, and we're all fantastic standing still on a controlled range environment, just going, hey, perfect trigger press. Now we have to do that. We have to get our perfect trigger presses. But after we've done that, after you've put, your groups all touching each other, why don't you induce some kind of
Do we lose? Are you there, Corinne?
She got quiet, but she was going to say
going to be
stress.
shooting at us on the range. Yeah, control. It puts some kind of stress on you. And you know what? Some of that stress sometimes comes when you take a training class because you have some pressure to perform. You have a trainer who's like on the line with other people and you want to do well, and sometimes that's enough stress. Sometimes it's not. Go do some kind of physical exercise and then try to be perfect. Something that will induce stress because, people are afraid of failure. They're afraid to go, well, that was hard and I couldn't shoot as well, so I'm not going to do that again. Let's do that some more until that's easy, and then let's go to the next level. So, you can probably do some push-ups on the range deck, any range, and then go shoot some. So, but always end with accuracy. Begin and end with accuracy, just standing still, but somewhere in the middle, get your heart rate up.
She's right. That's part of our job as trainers. Is I've got to make people comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's the only time in their life, some of these people. I mean, I've got big business folks, attorneys, doctors, and they're not used to being uncomfortable. And I've got to let them know, this is where you learn discomfort. This is where you got to get it. This means you just found your failure point. You just grew more in 5 minutes than you have in your last 10 years because you haven't failed in forever. This is where you learn something, and that's part of our job to bring that out of them. I went and got a personal trainer thing where I got free with my YMCA membership recently, and this dude asked me what exercises I didn't like to do. I was like, "What do you mean? What exercises?" I don't like to do any of them. I don't like exercising. I don't want to be overweight. I like to have a good functional fitness, so I'm going to do exercises, but I don't enjoy picking up stuff and putting it down, especially heavy stuff. I don't like going to the gym. I go to the gym because I need to. I go run because I need to, not because I love it. That's crazy stuff for crazy people. And I was like, what kind of personal trainer are you? You should be making me doing those exercises. Whenever I tell you what exercises that I don't like, those are the ones that you better make me awesome at. You got it all wrong, man.
That's interesting. Jason, are you back with us? Sir, I know you're going through. He's going through a storm right now at his house. So, are you there? No, I guess he's not. Okay, he had texted me here a while ago that he had a storm out there. So. Any last things, just to wrap up, anybody? Training and terrorism. Any last thoughts?
No.
Okay. Man, I appreciate every one of you. I really do. And I know Jason's been dealing with the storm, and I know he has stuff to add, and I appreciate him and the comments and just the knowledge base that you guys have. It's incredible, and I mean, it really mean that, and I know that our folks will too. And I hope we can do this more often too, with different things that come up and different training aspects, and we'll have more of our members come on board too to be able to add different perspectives. But I hope folks can come away from tonight and say, you know what, I got some eye-opening stuff, or I got a good perspectives, and I really do. Again, if folks want to get a hold of you, Mike, let's start with you first. I know Jason's gone. I'll just put the plug in for Jason real quick. He's with Central States Training Group. You can look them up on Facebook and on the web. They have a website and everything. If you want to go train with them, and look them up. Mike, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
I'm also on Facebook, and my website is triggerguardonline.com.
And you're located in?
Wellington, Kansas.
There you go. Okay. And then I'll just go on down the line as far as pictures go, as people are seeing it. Daniel, how can they get a hold of you and everything at Thunderbird?
They can follow me on Facebook at DanielShaw0369, Instagram DanielShaw0369, Twitter if anybody uses that. I just have stuff go to it. I don't actually use it. And ThunderbirdGuns.com is where you can go to the calendar and see any classes that are coming up and all those things.
Okay. Corinne?
You could also follow me on Facebook, Corinne Mosier. You could also email me if you wanted to, corinnemosier@gmail.com. I do teach at Centerfire Shooting Sports in Olathe. We offer all the defensive classes, rifle, pistol, shotgun, vehicle defense class, as well as your basics. I do offer ladies-only classes, not because I think they should only be with other ladies, but because it's a lot of fun for me to teach it, and so we do that several times a month. So that's Centerfire Shooting Sports in Olathe, Kansas.
And Centerfire's on, is centerfireshootingsports.com?
It's centerfiress.com.
All right, good. So that gives a good gamut. I'm going to add to the description of the video that book. Thank you so much, Daniel, for bringing that up. And I'll add that in there so folks can go ahead and get a handle on it and read it. And I know that I would really encourage folks to read, man, some of the older guys too. I know you guys do. Colonel Cooper is never out of date. And Masad Ayub puts out great stuff. And I mean, there's a whole abundance. If I got started, I couldn't stop. There's a great abundance of guys to read, watch, videos from, everything like that, and then go train with to you guys and more. And that's what our certified training program that we're going to be rolling out next year, hopefully, too, will encourage folks and give some light to different things. For people here in the state, there's a lot of good people here to train with here in the state of Kansas. So, thanks guys so much. Man, it's been good, and thank you for giving us your time. Corinne, happy anniversary! Thank you for giving us your time tonight. We really do appreciate it. And tell your husband thank you.
I will.
And and happy anniversary. But for now, guys. Thanks again to our guests, but to you that are watching, thanks for watching tonight. And hey, be prepared, get training, get prepared, and get your mind prepared that you may have to become violent at some point in time to save your life or someone else's. All right. Thanks again. If you need to get a hold of us at the KSRA, we're at ksraweb.org, or you can get a hold of me at lcaudill, CAUDILL, at ksraweb.org, or info@ksraweb.org. Get us on Facebook. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you can get a hold of us, and they're all actually linked on our YouTube channel too. So have a great night, and if you're watching this during the day, have a great day today. So thanks so much, and be safe out there, and train to live.
Good. Thank you.